Hello, fellow villagers. This is Silver Lining Lili. Welcome to the College Bound Village. Scholarships found for the college bound. Let's get this money for college. Be encouraged.
Well, hello. This is Lily St. Christopher of the College Bound Village, and I'm very excited to have with me some representatives from the University of Missouri St. Louis, Dr. Holly Pope, who is the admissions representative, and then Dr. Ed Munn, who is actually over the Honors College. He's the Dean of the Honors College. Is that correct, Dr.
That's correct.
Munn? Okay, very good. So we have them here today. My son, who is a sophomore currently at UMSL, received an opportunity scholarship from that school, which is a full ride scholarship. And we have a lot of connections here, and they've been gracious enough to share some things that are going on right now in the environment that we're in that is very challenging, but it's going to be good to hear some insights from them. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to get started. I have some introductory questions for you. The first one is, from your perspective, how has the college process changed so far since COVID-19 hit?
The admissions process on the whole is the same in its basic structure, but a lot of things are changing sort of in details. Obviously, how we think about what students we want to accept is something that's in progress. And I think one of the most important things to say is that most colleges and universities are figuring this out at the same time the parents are. So a lot of this is the beginnings of us working out what admissions and it looks like in COVID with students who have different kinds of limitations and a different kind of high school experience. With that being said, it hasn't changed in substance that much. We are still looking at the same kind of combination of entrance exams, high school grades, high school activities, and engagement as helping figure out what acceptance should look like. So I think it's more in the differences of the details of what kinds of classes students are taking, particularly, I think, all the different activities that they might or might not be participating in high school. And that tends to affect scholarships as much as admissions. I think it's helpful sometimes with parents to talk about the difference between the admissions process and the scholarship process. So the admissions is often more about grades and maybe test scores, and often not so difficult to do. Many schools have offered admissions to a lot of students, but the reality is without scholarship support, most students can't attend. And often when we talk about admissions with parents, they're thinking about both. They're thinking both about getting into the school, but also getting the amount of financial support that allows the student to go to the school. That second process, that's where a lot of the engagement activities, other things that students do become more important. And that's the part we're sorting out a bit more.
You gave a lot of good information there. You know, one of the things I thought about when you were talking has to do with the testing, because it seems like some of the testing, particularly with the ACT and SAT, has been either delayed or canceled. If a student does not have the test that they need, or they can't take the ACT one more time, how are you all looking at that, for example?
So at UMSL, we are going to move to a test optional admission system. I would expect many schools are going to go to a test optional, just because so many students can't take the test. The tests have never been non-controversial anyway. So I think that's a polite way to say that. So I think,
Exactly.
And there's a preference at least among the colleagues I work with on the whole, there's been an ongoing preference towards something like test optional. I think it's a little bit tricky though, because that's admissions, but test optional is not necessarily the case for scholarships. As I said before, often admissions means very little without a scholarship to support the student to go.
Yeah.
I wish I could give a better answer, but what scholarship support is going to look like for many schools is unclear right now, as there's a lot of schools that Missouri looks at a minimum ACT score. Now, for us in honors, we are going to move towards test optional in our scholarships as well, which will mean that grades, activities, and things play a bigger role. Honestly, we're still figuring out exactly what that's going to mean, because if you both aren't using acceptance tests and the students are limited in what they can do while in high school, it turns into all about grade point average, which is not something we want to do either. What you're likely to see is a real de-emphasis on the test.
Yeah, thank you for that. So it also makes me wonder that there will be probably more of an emphasis on essays. How can students distinguish themselves during this time? Conversation in this space of racial equity. Are you seeing any further emphasis in terms of maybe additional dollars that might be going towards those types of scholarships for that or anything like that? I know that UMSL has had traditionally some scholarships that were earmarked for this kind of thing anyway. We've talked about this a little bit. Do you think that there's going to be a tendency for more of that or to see that in a different light? I'd be curious to know how that's going to play itself out or what kind of trends you're seeing in the industry, in the school space.
Right now, honestly, I'm not seeing really a trend in any direction yet. I think we're still in the early stages of working some of that out. As in the rest of the country, there is a much more significant concern and sort of immediate interest and attempt to really think through what equity really means. I think this is certainly true at UMSL, certainly true at Honors College. I would love to say that has transformed into policy, but it really hasn't yet. I mean, I would love to be able to say, yes, we're absolutely increasing our financial commitments to equity scholarships. But right now, it is still, I think, like many other things, it's very much an awareness, a sort of thinking through how we address these really important issues without any policy in place yet. You've said we already have the Opportunity Scholars Program in place, which it's our most prestigious one at UMSL, and it is for underrepresented students, first generation students. So in that sense, we've begun to address it. I personally would love to see more being done here, particularly since money is being reduced across the board at universities. So how we work out equity issues as budgets are being reduced.
Right, expression of that. Thank you. So I have a question for Holly, because I know you specifically work in admissions for the Honors College. And I wanted to know from you, are you seeing an increase in students who are more local to St. Louis, staying here versus going to school at UMSL versus going to other schools? I know that UMSL is a commuter school anyway. Are you seeing any trending just this year, or does it look like more students are going to do that in the COVID space, or it's about the same?
Looking back at last fall when we were recruiting, it maybe looked like we were going to get some more out-of-state students or some students that lived a little bit further away. Starting in March, April, summer, definitely we had a lot more local students that maybe had initially plans on going away to college. COVID hit, finances hit, and they wanted to stay at home. So we did get an increase in local students that kind of at the last minute decided to apply and come to UMSL just because of their circumstances so they could live at home. Right now, we do have a lot of local students in the Honors College. So yeah, we definitely saw that. I don't know how that's going to change for this next recruitment cycle, hoping that will bring some other students in as well, but it's really hard to know right now. So I have a feeling a lot of students might just be like waiting and seeing until they make their decision. That probably might be at the last possible minute that they make their decision on where they want to go for this next cycle. It's really hard to say right now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the new normal is just kind of a new normal, right? So one of the questions that has come up talks a little bit about social media presence. We've seen an increase in students who are on social media just because they just have more time and, there's just a lot going on. And because of the virtual approach, we've also seen where they're in the homes more. So do you have any types of suggestions, either related to social media or just related to ethics, online ethics in general, that you might be able to share with students that could be helpful for them?
What students have been told for a while now is true. Social media is public. You should think about what you're posting, and all that material is material that is basically publicly available. As you're posting, you have to be very thoughtful, maybe more thoughtful than you're aware of when you're sending stuff to your friends, that any of it might become available when colleges or jobs or anyone really is looking at you for a position, or as you get much older. I know that when you're in high school, you don't think much about being maybe a judge or a senator or being involved in something where people might be looking back at what you did when you were young. I mean, it's really the same as always been said. And I have a daughter who's a sophomore in high school. So I'm on the other end of this. And it's the same thing I tell her. I don't think it changes much. It's everything you're putting out there is public. Be really aware of that. Don't put things out that you later on are going to regret. And I think that's sort of practical. The ethics part is trickier. I mean, you want to be really careful because social media can feel so distant that you don't realize that you're harming someone or that you're really creating a bad situation for someone or possibly for yourself. That's a kind of constant awareness. When you're 14, 15, 16, 17, it can be very hard to have that kind of awareness, given that it's clear that you can be a lot older than that and still not have that kind of awareness. So I would just be very aware that whatever you're doing in public.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. And we share that in common. I have a 15-year-old too. She's a sophomore, so I do understand. She's virtual schooling right now in her Spanish class. I can hear her right now.
Mine starts tomorrow. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, this is her second week. She's in the Parkway
Wow.
School District. So this is her second week, and she's doing okay. It's just a little bit different. We're all adjusting to the virtual world.
Scholarships found for the college bound. Let's get this money for college. Be encouraged.